This is Chapter 6, Part 1, Microbial Nutrition and Growth. So this chapter tends to be a little confusing, and I don't want to scare you with that, but if you look at all the terms in this chapter and kind of think of them as more of a terminology type thing rather than really making your head spin with all the different terms, it might be a little bit easier. So try not to overthink this too much. So when we're talking about microbial nutrition, we're talking about what the microbes need to live, right? So we have essential nutrients, we have macronutrients, we have micronutrients. An essential nutrient is anything that must be provided to an organism for survival. Macronutrient required in large quantities, macro being large, so this type of nutrient is required in large quantities, and they also play an important role in cell structure and metabolism. Examples are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So know that carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are all three macronutrients. So these microbes require them. Okay, they're very important in their survival. Micronutrients are present in much smaller amounts and are involved in things like enzyme function and maintenance of protein structure. Now, while they are also required for survival, they're required in smaller amounts. So they are known as trace elements. So you may remember that term from learning about this stuff in anatomy. Examples of trace elements or micronutrients for microbes are manganese, zinc, and nickel. All right, so we categorize nutrients according to their carbon content. We have inorganic nutrients and organic nutrients. I'm not going to necessarily say which of the following are inorganic nutrients. So don't scare yourself too much with these terms. Chemical analysis of the microbial cytoplasm. So what is the makeup of the cytoplasm? So water, a lot of water, 70%. Protein, organic compounds, basically 97% of the dry weight of if we were to take this, I guess the solids, if you will, would be organic compounds. Elements or CHOPs, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, are 96% of that dry weight. They make up 96% of that dry weight. And that's all I'm going to worry about on that slide. Chemical composition of E. coli, you can see how it's kind of made up. I'm not going to ask you these numbers, but it's nice to kind of see, look at how much carbon makes up E. coli, look at how much oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen. So those are the big ones, right? And that's where we get CHOMPs, CHONPS. So you can remember CHOMPs with an N is the major elements that make up microbes. All right, so this is where it starts to get, head spinning. So we have heterotroph, autotroph, phototroph, chemotroph. Heterotroph is an organism that must obtain its carbon in an organic form. An autotroph is an organism that uses inorganic CO2 as its carbon source. It has the capacity to convert CO2 into organic compounds. It's not nutritionally dependent on other living things. Auto being it's mainly, uses, it's able to survive in a self-contained way almost. Phototroph, photosynthesizes. Chemotroph needs chemicals in order to get some energy. All right, so everything is kind of laid out here. So an autotroph, there's different categories of each of these. So autotroph has photoautotrophs, chemoautotroph, chemo-organic autotrophs. These are, it's confusing for me even, so I'm not going to get super excited about these. If you know general information about each of these autotroph, heterotroph, where am I here? Whoops, wrong button. Phototroph and chemotroph. No, chemo being chemicals, photo being needs the sunlight. Autotroph, CO2 as its carbon source, and heterotroph, it has to get its carbon from organic forms. Okay, so organic, hetero, inorganic, auto, photo, sunshine, chemo, chemicals. Okay, so try not to overthink it. I'm not going to ask you the specific examples over here. It's just the basics of what each of these mean. All right, so autotrophs and their energy sources. Photoautotrophs are photosynthetic. Makes sense. Sunshine, right? Photo needing get some stuff from the sun. Chemoautotrophs use organic or inorganic, organic and inorganic, sorry, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, compounds as a carbon source. Lithoautotrophs rely totally on inorganic minerals and require neither sunlight nor organic nutrients. Chemoheterotrophs derive both carbon and energy from organic compounds, process these molecules through cellular respiration or fermentation. All right, so now here's the little bit more interesting stuff. Sap Probes, free-living organisms that feed on organic detritus, or basically dead stuff, from wherever it is. So detritus being the waste, the leftover stuff from dead organisms. So the decomposed, what is somewhat decomposed already, it will feed on that stuff. So that's what sap probes like. Decomposers of plant litter and animal matter and dead microbes. These guys, these sap probes, are recyclers of organic nutrients. So they're recyclers of things that used to be alive. Parasites. These guys derive nutrients from the cells or tissues of a living host. So parasites generally are those things that live on something that is alive. Pathogens will actually cause damage to the tissues or even kill those tissues or the organism that they're on. They range from viruses to helminths. Ectoparasites live on the body, ecto being outside or on. Endo is within, live in the organs and the tissues. Intracellular parasites live within cells, intra being inside, and obligate parasites are unable to grow outside of a living host. So, meaning they need a host, they need a living host to survive. All right, so here's some essential nutrients. And sorry, I was just skipping around here, and it just lists some information. You can use this as a reference. I'm not gonna dig deep into the essential nutrients, so just be aware of that CHOMP, CHONPS, right? That'll help you. That little mnemonic will help you remember those essential nutrients. And I will ask you which are essential nutrients. I'm not going to ask you specifics about each of those essential nutrients. All right, so we're going to stop. Actually, no, this is the last slide for this part. So other important nutrients include potassium. That's abbreviated with a K. Hopefully you learned that in anatomy. Sodium, abbreviated with an Na. Calcium, abbreviated with a Ca. Magnesium, iron, Fe, and zinc. So those are other important nutrients, and it gives the listing of what they're important in. Potassium, protein synthesis and membrane function. Sodium, certain types of cell transport. And you should know that from A&P because that was important when we're talking about moving things back and forth on the cell membrane or across the cell membrane. Calcium, stabilizer of the cell wall and endospores of bacteria. That's what calcium is important to. Magnesium, component of chlorophyll, stabilizer of membranes and also ribosomes. Iron, important component of the cytochrome proteins for cell respiration. So when, iron has to be around for cell respiration to happen for microbes. And then zinc, essential regulatory element for eukaryotic genetics. All right, so now I'm going to move on to part 2 of chapter 6. Sorry, I forgot where I was. See you in a bit.